Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the evening session of the El Cajon City Council meeting. The meeting is now called to order. I'd like to ask the city clerk to call the roll.
All council members present.
Tony Satile is here from our Planning Commission. Tony, would you lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance? Sure. Tony's going to come down and do that, and while we do it, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a brief moment of silence?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know, Tony Satile has been on our Planning Commission for quite a while. How many years, Tony?
I think about going on 11 years.
11 years on the Planning Commission. He works hard. Luckily, he gets a huge paycheck. He gets like nothing. Thank you, Tony. Okay, we are at agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes? No. Council, any agenda changes? That brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, council, authority, and agency members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Belinda, do we have any cards under public comment?
Yes, I do have a couple of cards. The first speaker is Tony Sotile.
Tony.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'd like to commend the staff and the City Council, all the good work that have done throughout the years. I remember when Bob McClellan was sitting here at the City Council and none of your faces were there before, just Bob. Truly, he's been a pillar of our community. Whenever anyone needed any help, Bob was willing, not only willing, but he also financially would help people whenever he could. So I've known Bob for a long time, maybe some 20 years or so, Bob. Yeah. So I've seen the city of El Cajon change for the better. I appreciate what the staff has done, that we are financially firm. We're not running on a deficit, the city of El Cajon. It's really complimentary of what you have done, and that we keep the city of El Cajon going. However, I'd like to bring a point into light, because I think it's important to bring things sometimes which are hidden, maybe it's not hidden, I have no idea, into light. I've seen some of the social media, and I've seen some videos and comments that people have been making. I want to specifically mention Councilmember Cajon. And those videos, I find them to be very derogatory. To me, it seems to be like Mr. Cajon against the City Council of El Cajon. Some of the things that he has mentioned is the City Council has done some illegal things, which I believe some of the things that he has stated are half-truths, not whole truths. So I'm bringing it to light because I wish that this would stop, because the City Council needs to hold a higher standard, and that the City Council needs to work for the betterment of the entire city and the community, not fight with each other to see who can win over the other person, because when that starts going, the people of El Cajon lose out. And we want the people of El Cajon to win. I would like to see the City Council to be cohesive, and if there is a legal problem, there is an avenue. It's called going to the district attorney and make the proper accusations. But if you have no proof of any illegalities, I think the half-truths which are being spurted out in the social media should stop. So thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I hope things get better from this point on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Valles.
Hello? How are
Hello
things at the
again.
hospital?
Pardon me?
How are things at the hospital?
Busy.
For those of you who don't know, she's a nurse practitioner, works with little babies.
Yep, babies all the way up to even adults,
Oh, okay. I thought it was
because
just,
they have congenital heart disease. So I am here, my name is Elizabeth Valles. I am here as an employee of Rady Children's Hospital to promote an activity, or an event that's coming up on June 22nd for the Ronald McDonald House Charities Annual Red Shoe Day. It is listed on the upcoming events in El Cajon. Just to, I know a lot of times there's different fundraisers that are going on, but after working 8 years in ICU and seeing how Ronald McDonald House really benefited not only the families, but we also have patients, many people don't know that, patients that stay over there that may have been discharged from the hospital but may live out of state or very far away and are still getting some treatment and need to be close to the hospital. We see a lot of patients from Hawaii, from Guam, from Saipan, and sometimes those patients and those families are staying over at Ronald McDonald House for months at a time. So it's a wonderful, wonderful house. If you've never had a chance to go on a tour there, I highly recommend it. All of the amenities that they provide for the families that are going through some really trying times with their children, and also to be able to provide a place for children to be close to the medical needs, to attend to their medical needs as they need that they need. So as you see those red shoes out on June 22nd, I asked them, and so often now we don't carry cash with us, we use cards. Have some cash with you that day, please, and if you would please deposit it into a red shoe. I'm not too ashamed to ask for money, so to help the kids. So thank you very much.
is there a website people can go to if they need to?
There is, thank you for asking, www.redshoedaysd for San Diego.com.
Thanks. Well, that's a good cause.
Yes, it is.
Thanks
So
for being part of it.
have some green in your pockets that day. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
I have no more cards under public comment.
Okay, then. Item 100 is a presentation of the East County Homeless Task Force report. And staff, would you please tell us about this?
Well, I am simply going to introduce the executive. You can stand back up, Eric, because I'm going to introduce you. Eric Lund, Executive Director, President, CEO, and other titles of the East County Chamber of Commerce. As the City Council well knows, the Chamber of Commerce hosted and began over the past year the East County Task Force on Homeless. They aren't done with their work because it's an ongoing type of an effort, but they've reached a point where Eric indicated they're prepared to report out to the City Council and make some recommendations. So, Eric, I will hand it to you.
Thank you very much, Doug. City Council members, Mayor Wells, and staff, thank you very much for having me here today. Again, my name is Eric Lund, and I am the President of the San Diego East County Chamber of Commerce. And currently I've been working with and directing the East County Homeless Task Force. We provided you with a report, including a strategic plan. I just want to mention that strategic plan is continually improving and changing. And so it's going to keep growing as we continue to develop new ideas and solutions. If we go to the next slide. So the mission of the East County Task Force on homelessness is to help develop solutions to homeless problems by bringing all sectors of the community together to implement change and improvement to our current condition through collaboration. And that's a really important point. Next slide. Toward this end, we have gathered all of our East County cities, the county, and all sectors of the community to tackle the problem of homelessness together. Would everyone here that is part of the Homeless Task Force please stand just to be recognized, because I know there's quite a few of you in the audience. These are just a small portion. Thank you. So we've had over 250 community participants participating in over 40 meetings since we started the East County Homeless Task Force. They've all been working to help get people off the streets and onto the path of a better life. And we're working with the East County Regional Task Force on Homelessness as well to share our ideas and to coordinate with them towards helping to improve the effort countywide. We want to be sure that East County has a voice and that El Cajon is engaged with the process. And as usual, our community is coming up with innovative and unique ideas to solve a variety of key homeless-related problems. Next slide, please. So how are we going to approach this whole problem? Our approach from the beginning has been a quality management approach, which is commonly used in today's business environment to tackle tough problems through continuous improvement. Once a key problem related to homelessness is identified, it is researched, a set of ideas is discussed to solve the problem and prioritized, and the teams that implement those ideas and create best practices and check on the results to see if this resulted in improvement, and if it did, then they make it a best practice and continue on. The cycle is repeated as more problems and solutions are found. Next slide. This is really important. We're quite different than the regional homeless task force in that we have a bottom-down approach. So this model, we have 10 self-directed teams that are cross-functional. That is that the people on those teams are all from different parts of our community. These teams report their findings to the director, who seeks to ensure that the teams have the resources they need to be successful. And the director reports to local officials and the steering committees the results and the resource needs of those teams. Next slide. So you can see the team topics that we identified early on in the process. And that was during our first 3 meetings as a task force group. Following are the key recommendations and requests for support from the City of El Cajon to help us to solve our homeless problems. This is the result of many meetings, and each of these teams and the solutions they have developed to tackle their area of concern in El Cajon. Next slide. And I'd like to point out that there are many additional actions and resources being applied through these teams that are not part of today's presentation. And that's because those teams may be solving some of those solutions or having some of those solutions solved through the private sector or through service providers, or it could be issues that relate to different areas of our region. Next slide. Okay, so let's get to the ideas and recommendations from our teams. First up is Team 10, and that's the task force management team. This team is responsible to help define the best management processes and organization model to make the East County Homeless Task Force successful. First, the team is recommending someone to replace me as director. Sorry about that. Just kidding. The task force needs a part to full-time position to attend this director position, would attend the team meetings, follow up on scheduling, coordinate requests, and communications. And this is a critical position to the future success of this effort. The director position would report to the president of the chamber, that would be me, and I would report that, the results of things that are going on, to the task force steering committee, which would be made up of all different segments from our community. So, for example, that would be the faith-based community, city officials, police, so all different sectors would be represented in that steering committee. The self-directed teams would continue to drive solutions to our homeless problems. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So here's the result of our marketing support team. They've produced a new sign to deal with panhandling, which is a pretty big problem in the area. And this sign would be potentially in public places if it was adopted by the city of El Cajon. So we put this up for your consideration. The listed website could be East County Homeless Task Force as it is there listed, or it could be the city's website, and then you could list the different charities that people could donate to. And that's the idea behind that sign. This sign is $45 from a professional city manufacturer of signs. Obviously, there's the cost of the pole and installation in addition to that. But those would go into places where typically it's going to be city-owned land, places like off ramps and in medians and places like that. So it's a smaller sign. Next slide. The marketing team also addressed panhandling at businesses, which is also a major concern and problem. They've developed a poster program for storefront windows that would be paid for by the store owners. We're just asking that the city consider this space as not being included in their advertising space if it's an East County Homeless Task Force poster. Next slide. This is from our Homeless Outreach Team 3. They're asking that the city support up to 4 spaces for the dogs of homeless people who may want to seek services where pets are not allowed. It's actually a pretty big problem. This would be in the new animal shelter, and we'd like that to be for free for those homeless folks. This would free them up to access to those services or short-term shelters where dogs are not allowed. So that's essentially what we're asking for there. Next slide. Access to Services team, which is Team 4, that team's developed a new app. Actually, our East County leadership team, which is here today, all dressed in black, and they've got their team shirts on. And I think we handed out some of our bracelets that are promoting this app. The whole idea is to get to homeless folks the services that they can use nearby. And so this team has developed an app that works via text or smartphone. So if they have an Obama phone that isn't a smartphone, it just does text only, it will still work. It'll tell them where the services are that they are looking for. And so it's a really cool app. By the way, that team's getting a lot of interest countywide and from different areas. So it's going to probably take off. It's a really good idea. This has been field tested with homeless folks. And interestingly, of the people they interviewed, it was unanimous that they said they would use the app, and they really thought it was easy to use. It would work in conjunction with 211 and the East County Collaborative, so it would help direct them to those sites that provide a lot of services and service information. But more importantly, it'll help funnel them into the specific kind of services they need. And the intent is down the road to actually make it geo-sensitive so that it'll sense where that person is and then provide the services that are closest by. So that's a really nice feature of that app. Next slide. Reunification team. This team is chaired by Captain Sean Kelsey, who is here tonight from the Salvation Army. And we're calling this program A Way Back Home. It's a program of the East County Salvation Army to serve up to 100 homeless people here in the East County and counsel and support them being returned to family or relatives. The great thing about reunification is it's the least expensive solution. It really is the least expensive solution to solve homelessness. We will be tracking all the data on success rates, and we are asking the city help with support of up to 20 people out of the 100 at a cost of about $500 each. That includes the counseling. They give them a backpack to make sure they have food along the trip and their ticket to get to wherever they need to go, along with follow-up calls and stuff like that. And we're hoping that the Salvation Army will pick this up not only regionally but also maybe nationally. So it's really a good program. Next slide. Team 2, 3, and 6, which include data, outreach, and housing, have requested that El Cajon have a dedicated housing navigator to help relieve the bottleneck in providing case management, which is really what a housing navigator does, to help relieve, to respond to the VA SPDATs. That's an assessment that's done of each homeless person and is shared county-wide. So it's a certified, you have to go through a certification process to be able to do the assessment. But once those assessments are done, and we've done 200 here in the East County through Crisis House, and Crisis House would manage the housing navigator, who basically is a case manager, and they would take that information and make sure that those people get those services that they need. So the problem right now is we don't really have a housing navigator. So everything's sitting there, and there's not much being done with it. And so that's very important. The cost of that is about $70,000 for that position. Also, it's part of a coordinated entry system process, and that includes getting people into rental assistance, and we're asking that the city help support up to 25 families with rental assistance. Now, cost of that is about $80,000. I know these are big dollar amounts, but that's what it costs. And again, Crisis House would help to manage that and make sure that that happens. The team also requests that the city support finding another motel maybe around if there's one that we decide we don't want to keep running, or apartment building or something that would work. Similar to East County Transitional Living Center, I've talked to Harold, and he could produce another facility and similar results, which have been terrific, I think, with our local shelter. The East County Transitional Living Center really helps get people into the workforce, back into jobs. It helps them all the way through, and that's what we really need, is those kinds of solutions. That's really a great service that he's provided. So we would like to see one more of those, because then we could handle more people, and then we think that would be a positive thing. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is Access to Services Team 4. And one of the easier problems to solve for homelessness is sanitary, conditions. Helping get homeless off the streets, you've got to help them, clean up their act a little bit, right? And this is a portable shower system. It has propane tanks to heat the water, has a holding tank that collects all the water that comes out of the shower. And this particular mobile shower has 3 showers in it, and we found this one. It's available for I have it on the list. It's $26,000 plus some change. I've talked to our faith-based community, and they are interested and willing to support half of the cost of this, and so we're asking the city to help support the other half of the cost. So that's about $13,000, a little bit more than that. And the way we would run this shower is that it would be dedicated to El Cajon, and it would be operated by the faith-based community, those who donate into the pot to help pay for the balance of it. And we would manage the schedule, the storage, the maintenance. All of that would be covered by the faith-based community. We'd take care of that. So, okay. Team 8 is law enforcement. We've had a lot of great discussions with our law enforcement team. One of the things that we've really looked at is the need for a full-time hot team. We think that would really be beneficial for El Cajon with the increased numbers of homeless that we've had here in the area. So that is a request. I'm not sure what the cost of that is. I'm sure it's not inexpensive. But that's something that we'd like you to at least consider, is adding a hot team full-time rather than just part-time as we currently have. Next slide. Oh, back up, I'm sorry. One other request also, and I've talked to the police department about coming out to the business community and sharing best practices for business establishments as far as lighting and video cameras and window space, keeping free space so you can see what's going on outside, and making their businesses less attractive to homeless, as well as how to deal with homeless situations. Don't always call the police. What are other options? So we'd like to have the police department come out, and the chamber is willing to host a couple of large workshops to really get the business community out in a big way. Next slide. Okay, so this is a summary of the requests from the task force. Again, you can see that these are all requests from the teams that are working on the front lines. These really do represent the people with the boots on the ground that are directly interacting with their homeless population. Yes, the price tag is a bit much, right? You go, wow, that's a lot of money. But when you look at all the different things that we're proposing there, it's really going to put a big dent, I think, in the homeless situation here in El Cajon. And I think it really will make a difference. We wouldn't propose it if we didn't believe in it. So the total ask is for $196,435. We know that staff is going to review it and take a hard look at it. And I'm totally willing to answer any questions that council or staff has. And let me see. I'd just like to thank everybody who has helped to prepare this Homeless Task Force report and our strategic plan. I want you to know that we have another meeting coming up later at the end of this month. We also have a meeting with all of the chairs of all the committees to share their information. So we're doing it in a number of different ways, and we'll continue to work hard to benefit our local communities. And that concludes my presentation. Next slide. Questions?
Well, Eric, before you start, I want to thank you for the time you've put into this. I know it's been way above and beyond the call of duty, and we appreciate it, and I'm sure the citizens of El Cajon appreciate it. I also want to thank all the various people that from all over the city that helped with this really daunting problem, specifically all the people from Connect El Cajon. And I know there's people from almost every organization in town, a lot of just individuals who cared. And I want to make sure you convey to them that we take what they've written very seriously. We're going to take a hard look at it. We're going to see how much of it we can implement, and we would like you to pass on our thanks.
Thank you.
Let me see if there's any questions for you. Bob?
I think that idea of the shower is a great idea. However, I think that instead of having a holding tank hold the water after it's used, I think it'd be smart to maybe figure out some way of having some faith-based organization that could maybe connect to the clean out or something like that, and like you do with the motorhome, and just go directly into the sewer system, because that tank's going to get filled up if somebody wants a half-hour shower or something like that, which should be a long shower. It shouldn't be taken anyway. But
yeah, we currently have a shower that comes from San Diego that comes out here every so often.
Yeah.
And they are limited to a certain number of showers, people that can take showers, and that's it because of that. So that's a good suggestion.
But I think coming next to a clean out at a faith-based organization might be a good idea, so that you don't have to fool with emptying the holding tank all the time.
Yeah. Thank you, Bob. I also want to mention that I talked to the Elks Lodge about being a dumping location, because they have a dump there, and they said they'd be willing to help out with that. So.
Eric, this is just fantastic work. If the city had to commission this kind of a study on all these criteria, it would be $50,000 or more that we'd have to pay for this. So, way to step up for all of East County. But the people of El Cajon should say thank you, because the people of El Cajon are clamoring. We've got to do something. We've got to do something different. It's the old quote attributed to Thomas Edison. It's insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So you've given us concrete things to try that are different. That's what's so valuable about this report. My question is, if you had to rank them 1 to 10, not right now, but at some point, I would be interested to know, this is our number 1 ask. This is our number 2 ask. They're all valuable asks. There's no number 10 or last place. But I'd be interested in a ranking of what's really on your heart for those 9 or 10 items. Not right now, but at some point.
They're all important. And the ones that don't cost money, I do right away. But as far as, if I were to rank them, and I won't do it right now, but, honestly, all of those things that we brought up are the key, most important points that I think were brought out of the Homeless Task Force.
Other questions? My question is, have you talked to the county at all about partnering with this? I know they're sitting on a large sum of money, a lot larger than what the cities have.
Right.
And some might argue that it really is the county's obligation to be deeply involved in this. Are they willing to put any money into the project?
Well, they are already. Again, I'm not talking about all the things that are going on everywhere else. So there's a lot going on with mental health and with other areas. So the county is spending money in this area, in this region. But trust me, we're going to be going to each of the cities and giving a similar report. We're going to customize it for each city based on their needs. And we're also planning on going to the county to make a formal report from the East County Task Force, Homeless Task Force. I also am participating on all of the regional task force management meetings, so I've been getting pretty involved with them. Their folks are involved with our group.
So there's pretty good cooperation going on so far. And they're actually paying attention, going, wow, they're kind of doing things and making a difference already, and already action plan, and we're still planning and talking. And
I'll tell you, that's the difference between, I've been involved in homeless issues all my adult career, and this is really the difference between what you're doing and what everybody else I've seen is doing, because I've gone to countless luncheons and retreats where you talk about it for a few hours, everybody kind of banters about some ideas, and nobody ever kind of solidifies any ideas. I think you did a great job of really powering it down and coming up with some workable solutions. I commend you for that.
thank you. I will mention, I sat on the homeless task force downtown for, not kidding, off and on for 30 years, practically. And
So you know what I'm
same
talking
thing,
about.
same thing, right? It's just a lot of talking and not a lot of action, so unfortunately.
Well, it only takes a few people to make a big difference. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions before? Thank you for your report. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Okay. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, then, council. Yeah, Mr. C. Teely, come on up. Make sure you get a speaker card in before you leave today, though, okay?
What Eric has presented, I think it's a good plan. However, I would like to express what my experience has been and what I have seen. I had a friend of mine who became a street person, eventually started working with Salvation Army, very intelligent person. He had an alcohol problem. And then he was doing well. As a matter of fact, he was the assistant secretary to the Salvation Army. He fell back into alcohol, and he went into the streets, and then he died. Also, I had a friend of mine that he lived with the homeless people for about 2 years. He was studying to be a pastor and also became an attorney, and he lived with them. And he wrote a book about that. And what he found is that some people may disagree with me that many homeless people don't want to get help. They like, for some reason, living in the street, whatever that case may be. There are some who want to get help. And I also remember myself going out in the streets ministering to homeless people, and the ones who wanted to get help, we could help them. But then there are ones that did not want to get help. And you ask the question, why don't you want to get help? And the complaint that I received for going to the East County Transitional Living Center is that because when you go over there, they make you work. So while you're getting free room and board, and you're getting, yeah, but they make you work. And then I have to hear somebody preach at me. So, out of the people that I talk to, maybe there's one or two out of 100 that want to get help. What I would like to see is some sort of a work program. Because there was a wise prophet one time says that if you don't work, you shall not eat. So a work program where you could do any type of work whatsoever. It not only does it help whatever work they're doing for whatever purpose and reason, but also it helps the soul. Because then you feel useful, that you're doing something. You're not just getting a handout. So I think it's a larger issue. We could do all these things. I think they're great, but it's more of a moral problem than anything else. So this is what I wanted to state. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Tony, I think you're right. I think that, a lot of these people, unfortunately, the system that we live under, they give them money through the system, the government, and then they don't have to work, and then they can go out and panhandle or whatever they want for the money that they don't get from the government. But the government assistance is very liberal, and unfortunately, they don't take the same idea as the prophet did, that you got to work to eat. So unfortunately, we're kind of stuck in a vacuum, so to speak. But I think they come up with some good ideas. I'd like to know how many people really want help, that they could help and move in that direction. That would be very beneficial to know how many of them on the street would like help, because a lot of them don't want any. They just like getting their assistance and living the way they do, and they don't have to work. So,
I remember a couple of people I talked to on the street, on 2nd Street. We were ministering to the people on 2nd Street, you know. They would listen to you, and then after you talk to them about getting help, how much can you give me? They just want, I want you to go over there, I just want a handout. I just want some money. Oh, I have a girlfriend that's has a problem in San Diego. I mean, they're all excuses. They just wanted money. So they were listening to me with a hope that I would give them some money. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Are there any more cards?
No more cards.
Okay. The council, it comes to you. Any discussion? I think it was a great report. What staff is asking is to send it back to them so they can process it and come back to us with their own report. Yes, sir?
Well, I've been on the city council here for about 16 years, and then before that on the planning commission. So in that 20 years, this is most comprehensive and realistic homeless report I've ever seen.
Yeah, me too. So then I'd like to make a motion to, yes.
it would be nice to know, I know that the police have been going out and talking to some of these people and interviewing them and trying to get them assistance and all. I'd like to know what the percentage of, and maybe this could be in the report, what percentage of actual people on the street that would accept help, if help were available for them, to change their lives, because, like Tony said, a lot of them wouldn't want it. And if it might be a real small percentage, I don't know.
I think that's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how we'd get to the answer there. But
the police are interviewing them now with the homeless
maybe we could
problem that we have.
Would you feel comfortable with an anecdotal report from the police department saying, in their opinion?
Exactly.
Without hard numbers?
Yeah. Well, they could give us some close-by numbers.
Doug, do you think you could provide that with the report?
We will certainly try, and we'll reach out to other information sources beyond the police department as well.
Great. Thank you.
Appreciate that, yeah. I'm sure that statistically, our city is very close to many other western cities. So. Steve?
I heard Crisis House has perhaps up to 200 assessments that they've already done of people in El Cajon, and perhaps a little bit beyond El Cajon, but they certainly know names and already diagnoses and assessments of many of those people already, so they would be a source of information as well for who's ready to get into a home.
Eric, can you come back up for a second? Not to put more work on you because you've already done all this, but do you think you could help our staff synthesize some of that information?
Absolutely. We can give you general numbers and general comparative ideas of the homeless population. We can't get into specific cases, obviously, because of HIPAA and stuff like that.
I think what Bob is looking for is a direction and a basis for understanding, not necessarily hard, fast numbers.
We can kind of give you an idea of how many vets are out on the street, how many are actually ready to get into housing, what percentage have mental problems, percentages and things like that.
Those kind of figures would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, you bet.
Anybody else? Then I'd like to make a motion that we direct the city manager to come back to us at a future meeting with analysis and recommendations regarding this report. Moved and seconded. Please vote.
Mayor Pro Tem McClellan, would you try your voting button again, please? Thank you.
Sorry.
The motion carries by unanimous vote.
I'd like to give one more round of applause to everybody who's involved in this. Thank you so much. Nicely done. Okay, and I said this in the earlier meeting. I know that some of you folks who came out specifically for this agenda item don't feel uncomfortable if you have to go. You're certainly welcome to stay. I know there's probably nothing more exciting than a city council meeting, but if you have other pressing needs, feel free to go on. All right, item 100 is a presentation, oh, no, that's what we just finished, so let's move on to this one. Item 101 is a public hearing on appeal of Planning Commission, approval of appeal of director's decision for an adult daycare at 456 North Magnolia Avenue. And staff, would you tell us about this, please?
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is an appeal of a Planning Commission's decision of approval for a adult daycare on North Magnolia at the Babylon Palace. The Babylon Palace is an existing banquet hall, and they are proposing an adult daycare, which there was proposed to at the staff level, and it was denied at the staff level, and then an appeal to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission overturned the decision of the staff, and now that decision made by the Planning Commission is before the City Council on appeal. So just a little bit of background. The banquet hall was approved just a few years ago under conditional use permit 2205. That banquet hall allows for the property on North Magnolia, Babylon Palace, to be used as such, primarily used in the evening hours and on weekends. There's a joint use parking arrangement with the property owner to the north to help supply the required parking that the banquet hall needs. So here's a site plan that shows you kind of the layout of the property. You can see that the portion of the site plan on the right, the existing commercial building that's operated as the Babylon Palace fronts on North Magnolia. And just to the north of that, there's a property that functions as a health services office. That's on an adjacent property. The parking area for the banquet hall is immediately to the rear. And under an arrangement with the property owner to the north, there is parking that's available only to the banquet hall in the evening and evening hours and on weekends. It is not available for the adult daycare. So the existing building is about 35,000 square feet. About 15,000 square feet of that is for the adult daycare. There's 25 on-site parking spaces. And currently in the Magnolia corridor, there are 2 additional adult daycares. One is at 490 North Magnolia. That's the southwest corner at Magnolia and Madison. And then there's a second adult daycare at 240 South Magnolia, and that's just to the south of the county assessor's office building at the southwest corner of Douglas and South Magnolia. So here's an aerial image, kind of give you a perspective of where this property is located. Mid-block between Madison and Wisconsin. Properties in the general commercial zones, also within the downtown specific plan area. The adult daycare, as approved by the Planning Commission, does not have any health-related services. Parking is limited to the subject site. There was a concern for existing traffic and parking issues. However, when the Planning Commission approved the adult daycare, they included a condition that requires a traffic control shuttle transportation plan be submitted to the city's traffic engineer for review and approval to ensure that there would be adequate drop-off, there wouldn't be compromise of existing traffic issues, and as of today, that plan has not yet been submitted for staff review. During this process, with the staff also received comments from members of the public that oppose the adult daycare, and this was prior to the appeal to the Planning Commission. So just a little bit more background. On April 5th of this year, the director denied the minor use permit for the adult daycare, citing overconcentration of similar uses within the area, and the staff was concerned about traffic, parking, and transportation associated with the adult daycare. And then on May 16th, the Planning Commission heard the appeal, overturned the director's decision, and approved the adult daycare with a max capacity of 100 clients, approximately 10 to 15 staff, and as just mentioned, the requirement for a detailed transportation plan that must be approved by the city traffic engineer. And staff is available to answer any questions. I also might remind the council that the council has several options in front of it. Mainly one, it can deny the appeal and uphold the Planning Commission decision to allow for the adult daycare, or they can grant the appeal and overturn the Planning Commission's decision, or request additional information and continue the item. Staff is available again to answer any questions.
Are the clients allowed to leave the building during the day?
Our understanding from the applicant is they are not allowed to leave during the day. So it's a supervised operation within the building.
Any reason given why there's been no traffic plan submitted to date?
No, sir.
Do you know what the funding source will be for this?
Mayor and Council, we do not know where the funds will be coming from. The applicant is here, and I'm sure he
Yeah,
can
I'll
answer
ask
those
it.
questions.
Do you know the licensing requirements?
There's two, with non-health related activities, community care licensing in the state of California, licensed adult daycares. If it had health related, then it would be under public health in the state of California.
Okay. And, you know, can you explain to me again our choices? If we deny the appeal, then we're voting to allow the daycare to.
That's correct.
Okay.
And if you grant the appeal, then you're overturning the Planning Commission's decision. And there will be no adult daycare if you do that.
Will there be a test at the end of this? Sounds confusing. Okay, we'll make this work. Are there any cards on this, Belinda?
Yes, we do have several. The first speaker is Mike Terzibakian.
Mr. Zavakian, welcome.
My visual aid.
That's fine, yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the City Council, staff, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Terzabashian, and I'm here today to talk about our Babylon Palace Adult Daycare Center. At the Planning Commission, we'd spent lengthy time discussing in a lot of detail all of the needs that we were going to be needing to operate the daycare center. So today I'm just going to be touching on three relevant aspects that seem to be of concern: demographics, parking, and traffic. So demographics, in a nutshell, we're experiencing an aging population, and adult services more and more are in demand every day. There are many clients in their 50s qualifying for these programs as well. Number two, parking. If you notice in our project, we have 25 parking places behind the building, and we also have some parking places along the side of the building which we have access to as well. So besides the 25, with our neighbor, we have a signed lease agreement that we have access to 10 of them. So that gives me a total of 35. And in actuality, we only need 1/3 of all of the parking that's available to us. In accordance to Title 22, Division 6 of Chapter 3 from the Social Services Department, I'm going to read it real briefly here. An overall ratio of no less than 1 direct care staff member providing care for each group of 8. So with 100 people, we're going to need 12.5 staff members, or 13. Third point I wanted to talk about was traffic. We have one of the greatest gifts actually anyone can have. We have 3 driveways, and some of them, if you notice, are actually 250 feet long. We have 3 points of access to be able to enter onto the property, and we have 3 doors to the property so people can go in and out more rapidly. So if we need to, and there is some backlog, we can actually queue up on our own property without disturbing any traffic in the public streets. So I feel that the Babylon Palace Adult Daycare Center would be a win-win, especially for the city of El Cajon and the elderly of the city of El Cajon, and certainly a win for Babylon Palace, since we are only open on weekends for the events that we do, and I would sure love to be able to work during the week as well. And I'm hoping that this would actually fit the master plan for the city of El Cajon, and that it would be a place for social gatherings. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Perfect timing. Let me see if there's any questions for you. Questions? Steve?
There's been a condition for a parking or a shuttle plan. Can you tell me why there's not one yet?
The approval was just done a few weeks ago. I was really pleased that since someone objected to it, they brought me on the first agenda item. So we haven't had a chance to actually finalize it. But it's been how many weeks? 3 or 4 weeks? 3 weeks.
Another question is, how do you handle crowds now when you have 25 spaces, maybe 35 with the extra? How do you handle your current events there with parking needs greater than those?
Oh, we have 100 parking places available for the use of the banquet hall. On the slide that he showed, we actually have 100 spaces available in the afternoons.
But they're not available during the daycare hours being proposed?
Right, but during the day, all of our clients are actually being shuttled in. We only need parking for the staff, and the staff is a ratio of 1 to 8, so we only need 12 and a half staff members.
So if 12 and a half staff members take up perhaps 13 of the 25 spots,
I still have plenty of space, that's correct.
and out of 35 spots, if 13 of them are taken up by staff, that leaves 22 spots for a maximum of 100 people at this place?
Oh, they all get shuttled in. Most of these are shuttled in.
And I think that's what I'm not hearing yet, is what's the plan for the shuttle?
Oh, as all of the centers in the area, all of their guests are shuttled in by medical transport, and it's also paid for as well by the Medi-Cal system.
Okay, thank you.
Bob?
What is the level of activity of the people that will be in adult daycare? Are they handicapped in some way, or wheelchair, or aged or older, people that just, how about people with Alzheimer's, or what are some of the things that they might be afflicted with in order to need adult daycare? They can't live at home or take care of themselves.
That's actually an excellent question. I was speaking with the Department of Social Services, who's helping me put the project together, and they told me that an adult daycare is very different than an adult health care. The health care has more specialized needs, and they have certain requirements of people that are more ambulatory. She actually told me that I could choose how many I could want in the center, and the only need that I would have for people that are more ambulatory would be to change my staff ratio to 1 to 4, but only for those specific people. So I may need, for 8 of them, an extra 1 or 2 employees. And the majority of the time it is a daycare versus a health care. So our clients, they're actually called clients rather than patients at a daycare center.
And what is their level of competency? Is there a mental problem or physical problem, or why aren't they living at home?
No, they will not be living there. It's a daycare, but rather than something like a child daycare where you drop off your children during the day, this is a place for seniors to come. It's a service available through the state of California for the seniors of the community.
What is the age range?
Actually, I've seen some fairly young. That's why they call it adult, not senior center.
And why would young people be needed or need to go to a facility like that?
If I understand it correctly, sometimes if they're on disability or they have certain needs and the physician sees that this would be a benefit to them, they would recommend for them to be able to get out of the house and to go to a daycare center. It's a 5-hour window where we provide a breakfast, a snack, and a lunch.
And what type of activities would you have for them?
Usually they have, from what I understood, bingo, they have books to read, all kinds of things. Sometimes they have certain requirements for exercises, so they'll walk around the block and things like that.
no gambling or card playing or?
No, actually, even at Babylon Palace, I refused to go there. I did not ask for a card room. I don't condone that myself, so I won't have it in the hall.
Thank you.
No questions at this time.
Okay.
So I'm a little concerned about the street, the traffic, and the mental capacity of some of the folks who are coming.
Right.
Some of your patients may, or people will want to bring patients who have at least some level of Alzheimer's disease or dementia. How do you feel about that, and how do you prevent against accidents?
Okay. Well, we have one easement on the, or actually a driveway on the side of the building. I'll try to speak up.
It's okay.
On this side of the building right here, coming in, we have, the building is 135 feet, and I have an entrance to the building here, so in case I did have patients that needed more time for unloading and loading, we can actually queue them up over here. This is, I believe from here to here is a whole 100 feet I have.
I don't think I made my question clear. I appreciate what you're saying.
I'm sorry.
What I'm asking specifically is you've got confused people with dementia that have 5 exits, and I'm worried about somebody walking out the door and walking into the street and being hit by a car. There's a couple ways you could prevent against that. One is that you could screen out anybody that's got cognitive deficiencies, or you could explain to me the security system you have to keep people from walking out.
Okay. I got you now. Okay, well, the door on Magnolia actually is lockable, so we can lock it. However, most of the exits in the daycares will usually have a staff member that actually watches it. They also have beepers on the actual patients, so if they cross a certain line, it will beep, and then the staff would know automatically that they're actually crossed certain boundary lines.
That's good. What about drug and alcohol addictions? So I've got a patient, I've got a 52-year-old patient that's got a history of alcoholism, and he's homebound and he's on disability. Can he come to your adult daycare center?
Honestly, I can't answer that question. My talks with the Department of Social Services didn't quite get to that level of information. However, the one thing that they did tell me is that the level of patients that I would be getting at a daycare center would be very different than one at a healthcare center. So in other words, I don't have to have people that are in as much need.
I appreciate that. But a lot of that is going to have to do with your screening process.
Right.
Who's going to do your screening?
Oh, each center would have to have an administrator. We haven't gone to that step yet. I haven't hired an experienced administrator yet.
Would you be hiring somebody with a mental health licensure?
Oh, by
to
law,
screen the
I'm
patients?
required to have an administrator that can, that has passed certain tests and has certain experiences in this kind of work. I certainly wouldn't be doing it myself.
Okay. Are you passing any medications?
No, we don't do any medication or any health-related items. It's just strictly a daycare. That's why I thought it was a perfect marriage, actually, for the banquet hall, because it's more low-key, it's more of a place for social gathering.
Activity center.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that could work. I think you're going to have to be diligent, and even if money becomes an issue, I think you have to be careful about setting your screening guidelines, because if you start bringing in patients with dementia and Alzheimer's and people that have serious drug and alcohol addictions, you may be setting yourself up for some problems. You know,
Yes.
you're going to also have to look at whether or not you have the capacity to deal with patients with schizophrenia, patients who have serious mental illnesses that may be violent towards some of the other older folks. I've spent my life in working in psychiatric hospitals, so I have to think about all these things. I think it could work, but I think if it were me setting it up, I would get an experienced psychologist or psychiatrist to come in and help you set up a screening process that made sure that everybody that came in would be appropriate and safe for that kind of a program. That's just my suggestion.
No, I am in agreement with you, because One of the key things, I mean, for example, we have a catering kitchen at our banquet hall. I went to the Department of Health and I got the license as a restaurant manager. However, my chef has 40 years' experience. Everything I studied is nothing compared to what he knows.
Sure.
So I
You
understand.
have to hire experts.
So I understand the value of experience, yes.
Believe me, all of us on the city council will have to learn about things we have no idea what we're learning. Until an expert explains it to us, we don't understand. So I get that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions for the gentleman? Sir, we thank you. We may call you back up for more questions as the process goes through.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nadia Terzbashian.
Good evening, Mr. Meyer.
Ma'am, can you pull that down so we can hear you?
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. How are you?
I'm great. Good evening, all member of the council.
Welcome.
I am actually Nadia Terzbakian, which I am the mother of Mike Terzbakian. I want to tell you who is Mike. Mike is an honest, hard-working person, takes care of the small things better than the big things. And I do appreciate if you give him the chance to have his project, and I'm positively it will be a successful one and good for our Cajon City. Have a wonderful evening.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Is he good to you on Mother's Day?
Of course.
Does he always call you and is he a good son?
He's an excellent son. I think I did a good job to raise him.
You're the greatest. I like it. Thank you very much for coming.
Vicki Jones.
Well, I've never done this before.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me your name again.
Vicki Jones, and I own Advanced Dental Arts, and my address is 185 West Madison Avenue. I own a dental lab, and my main concern is parking, buses. They block my employees from even getting out of the parking lot.
What business do you own again?
A dental lab.
Oh, the
I
dental
make
lab.
teeth.
Is it right there next to it? Okay.
I'm right across the street from these two ladies. They have an adult daycare. They do go out and walk, and, we have to be very careful when we're driving. I have 3 drivers on the road full-time, and they're constantly coming in and out, taking cases from dentists to my lab, and we work on the cases. I am constantly getting blocked in by the buses that are the adult buses that are picking up the people at the daycare. So I think adding more buses is really going to be tough for me to get in and out of my business and service. I service the community also, plus doctors all over San Diego. So I'm kind of opposed to having more traffic because we're basically, my entrance is on Madison. My exit is the alleyway right there that gets bogged up by all the people. My one parking lot that's in the front of my building, my driver, or my office manager, was blocked in for like 5 minutes waiting for these buses to get loaded with the elderly people. So I'm not really for more traffic, and especially the alleyway. And that's where I stand.
Let me see if there's any questions for you.
Huh?
Ben?
You said 5 minutes? Locked in for 5 minutes? Okay.
But I have cases. I do work all over the San Diego area, Poway, downtown, Chula Vista.
I gotcha.
And
how many parking spaces do you have?
I think I have 25,
How many employees do you have?
23. So I have enough parking. We park in our lot. We do not go outside and park. There's a lot next to me, but we do not use any of those lots. If you come by my office during lunchtime, they're playing ping pong in the parking lot. But my property is completely gated, so I don't have the homeless. I did have the homeless when I bought the building. They were sleeping on top of the air conditioning thing. They stole all the 4 air conditioning units. They stole all the copper wire. So I bought it from Mr. Copley before he passed.
Okay, so your beef is just
The
just the
traffic.
traffic unloading and the vans.
Yeah.
And
And
then
blocking me in and getting my drivers. My drivers have to be out. They have a schedule to keep.
So I'm trying to understand, and maybe there's a better slide. So if your employees are blocked in by, because there's already an adult daycare, right?
Yes, and that's where we're being blocked, but now they've promised me that they wouldn't
Okay.
block me in.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so Tony, help me see where she is and where the vans would be. Where are the vans now? Where are the vans now?
They're in the
give you-
alleyway.
Let me give a little perspective. This is the adult daycare at 490 North Magnolia. I believe this is the speaker's property here, the old Copley property.
Yeah, probably.
This is the alley.
And the way we have to enter and exit, because the way the building is situated, when they built the San Diego Union Tribune building, you can enter one way, but you must exit through the alley.
I got you. Okay, question is, when these vans are there unloading, how long are they there for? Are they there parked there all day?
No.
Okay,
no.
so if they're not there all day,
I just am concerned about more traffic showing.
okay, got it.
You know, I don't want to be back blocked in. If I've got to run out and go, and we don't let any of our patients park, you know, they come in for custom shades, custom stains, and they do park in my lot, because we make sure they don't park next door, because they come and get us. So, that's it. I don't know. Any questions for me?
Thank you for coming. Let me see if there's any more questions for you. Any more questions? Well, thank you, ma'am, and good luck with your dental business. That's important.
Oh, everybody needs teeth.
Yeah, I need them more now than I used to, so thanks.
Lula Shamoun.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, good evening. My name is Lula, L-U-L-A, Qarana, K-A-R-A-N-A, and Al-Qas Shamoun, A-L-K-A-S-S-H-A-M-O-U-N. I'm the owner of Genius Medical Billing. I was at the hearing on 5/16/2017 for the above proposal. I do medical billing for a transportation company that accommodate adult daycares. Some of adult daycares have around 120 to 150 elderly and a client per day. For transportation, I bill only around 75% of the client. And we bill the insurance company, which is Molina, HealthNet, Community Health Group, and Care First, which is our medical program that belong of their respective facility. The other 25% of the elderly, they drive their own vehicle, which in turn do not need the transportation service. Most of the adult daycare staff park on the street to accommodate the remaining of the 25% elderly client that drive themselves to the facility. It was a question from the Planning Commission to Mike how he can provide transportation to the older client when he has insufficient parking space, which is only 25. My answer will be a shuttle van transportation for his client. Mike also stated he applying for handled elderly. If 75% of those elderly and client will be transported, what about the other 25%? Were they going to park? Was the staff going to park? Mike also stated he only had 25 space available. What about the mandatory handicap design parking space required by the city of the elderly? Mike also stated in his proposal of the name of the adult daycare is Adult Day Program Non-Health. By the way, and Mike also stated medical, which is Molina, HealthNet, Community Health Group, they not pay for this kind of program. By the way, all those is provided by the state, the funds. They do not pay for non-health, for adult daycare non-health. And I do deal with them every single day. They only have one contract, which is adult day health care. So, who gonna pay for those schedule, if even we have a schedule going on? According to the Manual of Policy from Community Care License Division, Title 22, Division 6, Chapter 3, stated adult day program does not state health or non-health. I think Mike awarded his proposal this way in order to attain his permit and deceive the city by hiring less employee and staff than mandatory by the state.
Ma'am, you can hold on for 1 second. You can turn off the red light. Your time's up, but I do want to ask you some questions, and it'll probably give you a chance to answer the rest of what you had to say, okay?
Okay.
So, I'm also concerned about that. My understanding of Medi-Cal was that they didn't pay for these non-health related Medi-Cal programs, and especially if it's a 2-hour-a-day program. Are you positive about that? 'Cause
Yes.
That was my understanding too, but I thought I could be wrong. I'm not an expert in this.
100%. It is Dr. Molina, Community HealthNet. I have a contract. It said the only service and they pay for only health, which is, according to Mike, if you have 100 people, he needs 13 to 20 employees. The staff, he needs 3A, he needs administrative, he needs a manager, social worker, massage therapist, and a front desk and receptionist.
Right.
And he also stated if you have a 13 table and 10 seats per one employee required by the state to serve those people.
Okay, I just have a few more questions, ma'am. What is your main objection? I know you're not worried about his financial health, so how does this impact you? Why are you personally getting involved in this issue?
Because I do the transportation for those elderly people, and those elderly people, I just wonder where they're going to park.
So your main concern is that we're not getting the whole story about the parking, and you want us to understand that the parking might be a bigger problem than what's been stated.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me see if there's any more questions for you. Well, thank you very much for coming. You've enlightened us. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lynn McDougall.
That's absolutely fine, yes.
Carmen Guerrera.
Mr. Guerrero, how are you?
Good evening. I'm doing great, Mayor, council members. I'm here on behalf of Mike. I'm actually the owner of the building, and as far as I'm concerned, I've known Mike for over 20 years. We actually used to be in the malls together, Plaza Bonita, El Cajon Mall, and other malls, and I've watched this man work. He's a very hard worker. He's a very honest person, and that is one of the reasons I leased him the building. I've had other people that were interested in doing the same thing as he's doing, but I chose him. My attorney and I actually chose him because of his character. Like I said, he's a very hard-working person, an honest person, and El Cajon should be very proud to have him here. And he did a great job in the building, and I really support what he does. When we first started this project together, we both took a big chance on each other because he put in a lot of money into this project. And I just hope that you guys grant him the opportunity to proceed with this, because doing the parties and all that stuff is great, but he's got a great potential to help the community. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any questions for you? Any questions? Steve?
Why don't you have access to the supplemental lot that you have access for on the weekend?
Well, when I first bought the building, it's a long story, and Mr. McDougall and I were neighbors, and he allowed for this project to go through, he allowed us to lease the land from him for that lot. But I had to give up some of my lots so he could use it also. So it was a mutual understanding, and we helped each other.
So I'm understanding that the reason why you don't have access because the owner of that lot has not granted you access.
No, which lot are we talking about?
There's a lot that you were able to use for parking for
right, the one across the aisle.
Yes, across the alley, I believe it is.
We have an agreement with Mr. McDougall to allow us to use that lot, and we agreed that he can use our lot during the day. So it's a written agreement that we have.
I'm still looking for the answer. You're allowed to use, I'm guessing it's Mr. McDougall's lot as the large supplemental lot that you're able to use on weekends and things.
And nights.
Why aren't you able to use that lot for this adult daycare center?
During the day, because he has option, his people in his building use it during the day. But in the evenings, we're allowed to use it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Natalie Karabi.
Hello, Natalie.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and the council members. Sorry, I asked to speak last, but that's okay. I'll just get it over with.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
That's okay. I was kind of promised that I would, but that's okay.
It's actually my fault, not hers.
That's okay. I forgive you.
Thank you.
Anyway, it seems like only yesterday I was here pleading with you to allow me the opportunity to come into the beautiful, as you called it, gateway to El Cajon and rent kind of a building in sort of a poor condition at the corner of Magnolia and Madison. But it was actually 3.5 years ago, so time really goes by really fast. And I did take a big risk to actually take a building and build a business from the ground up and follow all of the requirements that you guys so diligently kept adding on to my, conditional use permit at that time, which included, the driveways, the handicap ramps, the landscaping with beautiful high-tech irrigation. And I'm proud to say, I think some of you drive by that corner probably every day, and you can see the difference that these 3.5 years have made to that intersection of Magnolia and Madison. As much as the building looks beautiful on the outside right now, what's happening on the inside is even more beautiful. I'm proud to say that we serve about 300 elderly people, the most vulnerable in this. Sorry, it's been a very emotional day today because the gentleman, a very kind gentleman who was supposed to come and be here and speak in support of me, my next door neighbor, was tragically killed this morning in a car crash. Oh. The owner of 480 Magnolia, Riyadh, was killed in a car crash on the 52 freeway. So today, all day, we've been crying because I employ some of his relatives at my center. So he was supposed to be here to speak on my behalf and to address my concerns, but he's gone. So I'm very sorry. May he rest in peace. Anyway, I'm very proud of the business that I built. I employ over 30 people at this point. I'm literally changing the lives of so many members of this community, not just the elderly, for whom our center has become a home away from home, but also to the staff. I have a lot of single moms who are no longer on food stamps because of the job that I've provided for them. Their children are proud of them because they're being employed in such a beautiful facility, and they thank me all the time for the opportunity to work for me. But my primary obligation to my staff members and to my participants is to provide them not just with a beautiful environment that takes care of their health and takes care of their day-to-day needs, but also to provide safety. And this is where I'd like to address the issue of safety, which our next-door neighbor also addressed. Yes, this block is very congested. The alley is literally like a freeway. It functions as a freeway because people cut through that alley to avoid the traffic on the corner of Magnolia and Madison. We're constantly running into situations where a lot of our people who do have mobility issues cannot, sorry, I see the red light.
Let me get to the red light off. I can still ask you questions, and
Please, thank you.
I do want you to explain to me, because this is really important.
Yes.
I want you to explain to me your concerns about safety.
Concerns about safety are that on a daily basis, we drop off about 150 participants. Most of them, 90% of them, have mobility issues. They require ambulatory devices, walkers, some of the medical transportation that requires lifts, and therefore sometimes at a pickup time and drop-off time, it does, especially the pickup time, which is usually between 1 and 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it creates a lot of traffic when the vans are lining up to get the participants loaded up carefully into the vans. Therefore, sometimes, and like Vicky said, we do, unfortunately, especially when we have new drivers from a new transportation company that we recently hired to assist us, because we are a growing business, sometimes they're not familiar with the procedure, and, sometimes you tell people, you explain it to them, and they still do what, their drivers, they want to do what they want to do.
Can I ask you a specific
Yes.
question? So do you have Alzheimer's and dementia patients?
Of course, tons of them.
So is it a concern of yours about them walking out of the building and walking to the street?
Absolutely, but because my facility is an adult day healthcare facility, I literally am required to have a lot of professional staff. I have nurses on staff, I have doctors, I have social workers, I have licensed clinical social workers, and of course aides, which are lower level employees. So we are supervising them constantly, which brings me to the point of what seems to be a little bit of a misunderstanding here between the difference between the two programs. Yes, the adult day health care that I run, which is also the center that Western runs, and a new center that has opened since I was allowed to open is Elm ADHD, operating out of Royal Palace off of Broadway. They've been allowed to open, and they have been open for about a year and 2 months now. By the way, to address one of Mike's points, my center is operating at about half capacity right now. I've been in business for over 2.5 years now. It's going to be 3 years in November. We're still not at half of our capacity. There's room to grow. Elm ADHD is operating at half of its capacity. There's room to grow. So the community of El Cajon can be served for years to come just with the existence of our 2 new centers here.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind to me is if you're requiring your clients to have Medi-Cal.
Yes.
And the new center is not required to have Medi-Cal, and I want to hear what they have to say about that.
The other center, you asked about funding. The honest truth is, I've been in this business since 1999. Mike is new to this. The funding comes from private pay. And I don't see at this point, like I would be out of business if I was depending on people to provide private pay for the services, to literally be just to have a daycare, to play bingo, when we're providing the social services, but on top of that, we're providing a variety of medical services, like I said, which prevents the people from going to the hospital, calling 911 when they're sitting at home.
So are you saying that, well, let me rephrase this. Tell me about the licensure and the site visits, and how does the county get involved in the Department of Health Services? What's your oversight like?
Yeah, our oversight comes from 2 places. First of all, it's the Department of Public Health, run out of Orange County. And the second one is the Department of Aging out of Sacramento. They both come in. The Department of Public Health is the one that inspects the building itself. The Department of Aging is the department that oversees the program. The oversight, they come once a year, pretty much.
And community care licensing is not involved in yours?
If I wanted to get that license tomorrow, I'll be able to get that license.
No, I understand, but I just, is Community Care Licensing the same agency that's overseeing what you're doing?
No, but we're all overseen by Title 22 regulatory requirement, which is, and I wanted to address that Division 6, whatever, Chapter 3, it specifically states, as Mike pointed out, that once you have participants with certain disabilities, certain needs, the ratio changes from 1 to 8 to 1 to 4. So therefore, my whole point is when a senior person or any adult, because it's an adult care center, you don't have to be a senior. We have a 21-year-old who was our first patient because he's a severe epileptic and has mental conditions and was a patient at the region center and now is thriving, and starting to talk and doesn't have 20 seizures a day anymore. So he's only 22, but he is our youngest and we don't really have anybody as young. But anyway, my whole point is that once the elderly people decide, because it's a voluntary program, if all of my participants tomorrow wanted to not come to a healthcare center but go to a daycare center because they just get fed and somebody plays games with them, they're free to go over there, and he cannot reject them because that would be discrimination. So therefore, instantly his requirements will change from 1 to 8 to 1 to 4. So therefore, it's 25 support staff just for that number of participants.
I want to ask you a direct question. So if your understanding of the licensure that he's talking about, if somebody in a facility with that licensure wanted to leave, would they be able to physically restrain them from leaving?
I'm not sure about that part. If they could, technically, you're not supposed to hold people. You see what I mean? Because it is a voluntary program.
Yeah.
And usually if we cannot provide a driver, if somebody has to leave for emergency reasons, so like today, for example, we had a patient after surgery who was just not feeling well, and we called his daughter, and she came to pick him up at 11 o'clock instead of us taking him home at 2. But some of the participants, especially in his program, if they're more physically able, who is going to stop them? Because they don't have all the medical conditions.
Well, I want to we're supposed to keep to a time limit here, but let me just see if any of the other council members have. You've been very helpful. I appreciate it. Bob?
What are the timelines that the people are there when they come in, when they leave?
Our program starts at 9, but the first shuttle with the people arrives at about 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 7:45. And then they start leaving at about 1:15, and that lasts till about 2:30. The last person leaves, and then my staff stays on board till about 3 o'clock, and then my management leaves at around 4:30 when the cleaning crew is done cleaning. So, which brings me to another point, which is the Crystal Ballroom, which also is very much against this whole proposal. They have so many events during the day, such as funerals, such as quinceañeras, community events where they do fundraising, political fundraising at the Chaldean Association. Their traffic interferes with our traffic. And so to have this pylon, and it's not true what Mike was saying, that his place is busy only on weekends. That's not true. Yesterday during the day, the parking lot was full. So I don't know what event was held there yesterday, but it was completely packed. And there are people wandering all over this alley. It's just a nightmare of a situation, and especially when we have to call sometimes 911. We do have to call emergency services because we do deal with people. Some of them are in their 90s, and something happens, you call 911. And then sometimes they get stuck in the alley, or they get stuck on Magnolia because they cannot get in and out of the parking lot.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Let me see if there's any more questions. Bob?
Yeah, I'm curious as to what you say. They come in around 8 or 9 o'clock, and some at 7:45.
Yeah. Bob, I think
and they leave about 2.
I think it should be pointed out that the license that she has for her clinic is extremely different from the license that they would have.
But
So
Mr. Mayor, it's true, the hours would be the same. The program still runs 4.5 hours. This is the legal requirement for them to remain on the premises. And because you want to serve your participants breakfast, especially because we have such a huge diabetic population, we pick them up from home. They haven't had food yet. So we need to get them into the center. They exercise and they have breakfast immediately following the exercise.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And who takes care of them after you deliver them home at 2 o'clock if they...
Some of them have caregivers. Some of them are unfortunately on their own. The point of the whole program is for the state, because they're all medical patients, but they all have My patients mostly have Molina, Anthem Blue Cross, Care First. These are the three insurance companies that I work with who take their Medi-Cal, and now it's a different program. You don't have to have, it's Medi-Cal, but it's HMO Medi-Cal. So therefore, the whole goal of the program is to have a center such as mine that will take care of their not just daily physical needs, but also provide them with all the medical treatment to keep them from deteriorating so that they will not end up in a 24-hour care facility.
That's the whole point of these Medi-Cal HMO programs. They try to keep people out of the hospital.
Out of the hospitals and out of calling 911 at home because, if they don't feel well, they just call 911.
Ben or Steve, did you have any questions? Gary?
And I'm sorry I got a little bit emotional, but it's been a really,
I am sorry
sad
for
day
your-
today.
I'm sorry for your loss. Please accept our condolences. It's a terrible loss.
I think it's a loss to the city, too. He was a great business owner. Like I said, he owned the building next door to mine, and he really did a good job with his building as well. So it's a loss to his family and to the community, definitely.
Well, thank you for
I appreciate that you
making us
appreciate
aware of
that.
that. We appreciate that. All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Lynn McDougall.
Mr. McDougall, kind of a famous name in the city.
Famous or infamous?
I'll let you make the determination.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff, my name is Lynn McDougall, McDougal, and I'm one of the members of the 460 Group, which is a partnership that owns the property and the buildings just that abuts the subject property on the north. And we built our building in 1973. So for the last 44 years, it's provided about 30 to 35 good, fair-paying jobs for El Cajon. I'm aware that you've been in session most of the day, as I understand it, and that you've been dealing with some large citywide issues, and I realize that this is not particularly one of those. I may need a couple extra minutes because there were some things, that we didn't hear before. So because of my age and because Mike has invested more than $500,000 in El Cajon, that this is kind of a winding trail that this permit has taken. I'd like to have a few more minutes. Also, just so you know, I'm not being paid, so I'll be as brief as I can.
I'll give you a few more minutes, but just because you're 50 doesn't mean you have to apologize for your age. So.
Also, I do need, for the record, to put on the disclosure that although my name is on the pardon law partnership that your city attorney is a partner in, I have no financial interest in the firm. None of the other partners in the 460 Group have any interest in the law firm, and the law firm has no interest no financial interest in the building.
Fair enough.
So I just want that on the record. Unfortunately, Mike's original application did not make clear two important facts. One of those was that most of his patrons would arrive in vans or other vehicles, and two, the 2014 permit for daycare, which was granted to the Crystal Ball, has expired and had expired and was void. So Mike's Center, just for purposes of the concentration issue, this is the second daycare facility in the area, not the third. Planning director, whom I've known for years and for whom I have much respect, decided to deny the application. The Planning Commission at its public hearing focused upon 5 of what I consider to be the germane issues in this matter. And they, of course, were the on-site parking, the traffic circulation, the over-concentration of uses, the danger to patrons, and the demographics. All were discussed and deliberated upon in great detail, with the exception of the danger to patrons, and the appeal was granted by 4-1 with the reasonable conditions that were indicated to you earlier. First, with respect to the on-site parking, indeed, from all of the ratios that you've heard and all of that, and I think it needs to really be made clear, Mike is not asking for nor going to get a health center. That's different from the daycare center that he's asking for. And therefore, many, in my opinion, many of the issues, many of the questions that have been asked just aren't relevant, because he's not going to have medical people in there. And so also, one of the reasons that was not discussed is, and I'll cover this later, that Mike has the capacity with his facility and with the use of our driveway to load and unload all of his patrons safely. So that issue didn't even come up. With respect to the parking, he has 27 spaces. His requirement is 1 for each 12 people, and so he would need 8 on staff for that. Mike has decided that in order to give good service, he will have 15, and so he would need that many spaces. With respect to, he also, as he indicated, has the right to 10 non-exclusive parking spaces on our property. I do have to point out the inconsistencies in the Magnolia daycare appeal. And the first one, of course, is that this was a non-public hearing appeal, but actually, as you all know, it did have a public hearing at the Planning Commission. 2, Mike's minor use permit is for an adult care program, not an adult day care health center. And that his requirement then is, as I said, for 15 staff. Then also the traffic circulation. For 44 years, I've watched the traffic in that alley, and it does admittedly have a high daily traffic vehicle count. However, it has always, prior to this, seemed to be fairly smooth. And I submit to you that the reason that it's not like it was is, and I have sympathy for the lady that has it, and I didn't know about our neighbor either, and also for Ms. Jones, who complained about it. But the facts are that the reason there's a problem is because they do not have any area on their property where these vehicles can come in and load and unload people. And they're in the, as I understand it, they're in the alley loading and unloading these people in the mornings and in the afternoons. And that certainly is a severe problem, according to what these folks say. And what I'd like to then talk about is that because of the fact that Mike has on his own property a driveway all the way from the alley out to Magnolia, which is about 250 feet, and his side entrance is 113 feet from the alley. That gives him about the ability for 5 or 6 vehicles to queue up right there and still drop, unload, and load people right at his side entrance. Again, also, he has the right to come in to our driveway on Magnolia and also from the alley, and again, 250 feet, and he can have at least 5 or 6 vehicles queued up there, and they'll be right at his main entrance, which, as he mentioned, is not on the street, but is at the back. That's why I really don't understand the danger to the his patrons, and I also do not believe that there's an issue with respect to any medical problems in there. He will have to have some other staff and some other consultation. In conclusion, I would say I'm not financially interested in this permit, but I'm very fervent in wanting it to be approved for these reasons. First, Mike has done what the city manager and what you folks have done, strived for, and done amazingly well. He came in and took this building, which was decrepit, and I say that with my good friend next door there, had a junk store in it, spent over $500,000, made the outside of it look great, and made the inside of it spectacular, and established a business, a good, compatible business in El Cajon. So it just seems to me that he has done what is good for El Cajon. As you know, the population is aging, and Exhibit 1 here is in front of you, and I'm sure it takes a while for a business such as he has established to become profitable. So I would urge you to help him make a return on his investment. I also would submit that this is totally what the testimony I've heard so far about the government being involved in these, if they're not health care facilities, is a little bit contrary to what one would think. But he's been assured that it does have a program for that and that it will happen. If it doesn't happen, then Mike will certainly not be able to establish his business unless he figures out some other way to pay for the transportation, because he couldn't operate with the conditions that are on if he doesn't have that transportation. I urge you to give him your full consideration. Thank you very much. I might try to answer any questions if there are.
Are there any questions? I think you, in your comprehensive dialogue with us. You've answered all the questions before we could ask them. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
I have no more cards for this item.
I'd like to call somebody back quickly, if that's fine. Our first speaker, the owner of the healthcare. I'm sorry, I forgot your first name, sir. Mike, that's right. Your mom told me. I should remember that. That was very good to bring your mom. She obviously likes you.
Yes.
Listen, so one of my main sticking points on this, and I need to get a clarification on this before we go on, is this are you going to get reimbursed by Medi-Cal, or are you going to get reimbursed by private funds?
No, it's not private funds. From what I understand, the state of California, I didn't bring the paperwork with me, offers, I'll almost quote it because I've read it so many times, it offers 2 programs for the elderly. One is an adult daycare center, ADH, and the other program is an adult daycare health center, and I forget the acronym because I wasn't interested
But you
in
don't
that.
remember what agency is going to provide that funding?
Both of them are governed by 2 different agencies. One of them, the one I'm interested in, is governed by the Department of Social Services, and I've been down there, I've spoken with them. I actually have what they call a coach to help me, guide me through the paperwork and through the program. And what I understand is they both pay almost about the same amount of money. The only reason most people do the health center versus the daycare center is because you can bill, as she told you.
Transportation.
No, besides that, they have nursing, they have physical therapists, so they have almost a medical clinic there.
Do you remember what the daily rate is for
I believe
reimbursement?
it's around $68 per day per patient.
Okay. Thank you. Did anybody else have any questions of him? Yes, Steve.
Does your daycare program propose everybody start at the same time and everybody end at the same time?
Actually, when I spoke with them at the Department of Social Services, they told me that it was she said 5-hour window, but maybe the lady who has more experience is more correct. It's a 4.5-hour window. She said it doesn't have to start at a certain time or end at a certain time. Most people started at 9 and finish around 2-ish. So she told me if there's traffic concerns and you need to bump it a little later, the only thing is you have to watch your meals because you have to give them certain meals at certain times. And if I might add one thing that might help you make your decision, I usually never say anything derogatory about anyone. However, 2 of the people that came up here and spoke, and they spoke against me, you asked one of them why she was up here talking. They both talked to me about opening the same exact project at my location. One of them, I felt that it would not be a good partnership. The other one told me that they were interested in using my facility. The one right on the corner, they had catered food from me before. They also told me that they would pay for our insurance bill and they would have their patients come and do their dancing and whatever at our hall. Some of the other... I'm sorry, one last one.
I need to follow. Sorry.
The thing I'm concerned about, sir, is I can already see the folks behind you raising their hands. They want to come and speak. I don't want to get into a debate about this. I just kind of wanted to get some basic questions answered.
I just need to know, is everybody going to start at the same time? Are they going to show up at whatever time that you say it begins? Does everybody show up then?
There is a window, like she said, most of the shuttle. At the end of the day, we're talking about 20 cars. I mean, Magnolia has thousands of cars. We're talking about 20 cars, and I don't need to use the alley. I've showed my property has multiple access points from the street. I don't need to use the alley. I will not be illegally parking in the alley to drop people off in such an unsafe fashion. I won't do something like that.
I did have another question. You had mentioned 100 parking spaces, and Mr. McDougall had mentioned 27 parking spaces. Where are we at in that?
Both properties combined, we have 101 exact parking places.
But you don't have access to that on the
No,
side.
during the day, he owns the majority of them. I own 35 of them.
So you have access to 35 parking spaces?
That is correct, and I believe he reiterated that when he came up and spoke.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that's the end of our... Great. I'd like to make a motion then to close the public hearing. Please vote.
The motion carries by unanimous vote.
Council? Leave it up to discussion. Mr. Kalasha, look ready to speak.
I think that I'm going to handle this in the way, well, first of all, Mike's a sophisticated guy, and I've had dealings with him before, so I think he understands the concept. And I'm going to base this decision, this governing decision, based on the merits of this project and not so much, I know there was like a lot of feelings and people were really into it. So I'm trying to do my best to try to block all that out as much as possible and just govern on the merits of this project. And I think that as somebody who is a champion of business, I'm always there to help business owners maximize their potential in their own business. So,
Anybody else? Mr. Coble.
I think it's a good use of the facility during non-peak hours. I love to see that kind of utilization. I think it's a valuable service. As Mr. McDougall pointed out, the population is getting older, so the market is only going to grow. I find that you do not compete with the healthcare business because you're offering a different kind of thing, a non-healthcare. So I don't have a sense there. I am a strong proponent of property owners' rights. You should be able to do what you want to do with your property as long as it's within the boundary of the law. However, I am deeply troubled, but there is no traffic plan. It was a requirement of the Planning Commission. I'm disappointed that after 3 weeks, there's still not a traffic plan. My recommendation is to kick it back to the Planning Commission. Let's have them take a look at the traffic plan. It's possible that you could find an alternative. I think you don't have enough parking as it is. I'd like to give you an opportunity to find an alternative rather than to deny your pursuit. So my suggestion is to kick it back.
Let me ask you a question. Would you be equally as satisfied if we postponed this hearing until the traffic plan was in and you had everything in front of you? Because I'd hate to kick it back to the Planning Commission, but if that's how you feel, I just want to see where you're at.
Yes, I feel strongly there should be a traffic plan. It was required of the Planning Commission, and here we are, and we don't have one.
Would you be satisfied then?
Yes.
With a postponement until we have the traffic plan? Okay. Bob?
I agree that we need to have a traffic plan, but I like the concept. I'm a property rights person. I believe when people have property rights, they need to use their property for the goodness of the community, and I think this would be an asset to our community. So, but I'd like to see the traffic plan and how they're going to work that out with the other organizations in the neighborhood.
Gary?
I believe with Bob and Steve, their argument has merit, and I think we need to see that traffic plan. So I'd like to see it come back with that.
I'm comfortable with that, but I'd like to ask a couple of other things. One is, I would like a definitive answer as to what organization in California is going to fund you. And the reason I ask that is because I've run programs like this before. I know what happens if there's not enough funding to pick people up, pay for their food, pay for staff, pay for insurances, pay for workman's comp. At $68 a day, that's going to be a tight margin. I want to find out who's paying that and exactly how much they're paying that, because what will happen is that to survive, you'll have to cut back on staff. You have dementia patients, Alzheimer's patients, maybe 100 feet away from one of the busiest streets in El Cajon, 5 different exits. Let me tell you something. If you've got staff that are running bingo and running groups and other kinds of treatment plans, having a person at each one of those exits, that's going to be very difficult. You're going to have a lot of staff to do that. And I want to make sure that we can afford to do that. I'm not saying you can't, but I want you to flesh out as to how you would do that before the next meeting. One second, sir. On top of that, I want to see the traffic plan as well. And I think that was my main concern. But I'm in agreement with all of you that I'd be comfortable postponing this until we had all the pieces in place to make a proper decision. And staff, is there any objection to that?
Mayor, I have no objection. I don't know about the rest of the staff. I just wanted to remind you that would be part of the public hearing process, so perhaps you should reopen the public hearing and then continue the public hearing to whatever date you would want, and that allows everybody to come back and hear the rest of the testimony.
That's why we have you here. I would never have known that, so thank you. Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded, please vote. All right.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
So we reopened the public hearing, and I'll tell you why. What we're leaning towards is postponing this to the next meeting or the meeting after, depending how fast we can get everything done, coming back with the full traffic plan, and coming back with the questions that I had asked of you, and then we can make an informed decision. So if anybody wants to speak to that, specifically in opposition to that, please come up now and speak about that. I think we have to, wouldn't we?
It would be the continuation of this public hearing, Mr. McDougall. It remains open, and it sounds like the date would be, well, no, I think we should pick a date. If you
well, why don't we look at 2 meetings from now?
That's right. 2 weeks from now is not going to work.
2 meetings from
I
now.
understand, and I want to state from a staff standpoint that I want 2 full weeks to review. Your meeting is July 11th. If we don't have it by, it'll be about June, excuse me? Yeah, 10 days, then it's agendized. We're going to recommend you continue it again into the second meeting in July. I'm concerned that we get something that's lacks information. We're under the gun. We've got to bring it back to you. I'd rather not do that.
Why don't you make the recommendation of what's realistic?
Well, I think July 11th is, I don't know where the applicant is in preparing the plan. So if we could ask the applicant how long till he's going to completely full plan to us, we can schedule it at that time. I'm just saying for the applicant's purpose in the county and the council, if it's not to us by a particular time, we're going to request a continuance until we have.
What would that deadline date be? Sir, around.
Just one moment. 27. Yes, that's right. June 27th would be the deadline.
That's pretty fast. Do you want to shoot for June 27th, or do you want to go another 2 weeks past July 11th?
Actually, June 27 is my birthday. I think that would be an excellent day to do it.
Okay.
You picked it. And I already have the traffic plan, by the way. I did not submit it yet. I was waiting to see if I needed to do that from this meeting.
Okay. All right. I think we've got a date. Thank you, sir.
I'll remember that day.
Is there anybody else that wanted to speak to this issue before I close the public hearing? Ma'am? Yes? No, come to the microphone, please. We're specifically talking about the continuance to July 11th.
Yeah, which I agree, because Manson, he has to bring something from Molina community, the medical insurance, saying they do pay for adult day.
That's what I've asked for, yes.
Which is, I'm 100% sure they do not. The state doesn't have money to pay just for adult data, for bingo.
We'll find out when they come back.
Okay, I will be here also.
Thanks very much.
Bill, now you said the July the 11th, and somebody else said June 27th.
June 27th is the date they would have to have a traffic plan into the staff, so they have time to review it before the July 11th meeting.
Right, okay, so
So you would be continuing this to July 11th?
Yes. And did anybody want to speak to the issue of the continuance?
And if he doesn't have it by June 27th, then it'll be the following meeting.
Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
We're not.
You don't want to do that, continue that.
Oh, we have to, that's right, okay. So I would like to make a motion then to continue the item to our meeting of July 11th.
Second.
Moved and seconded, please vote.
The motion carries by unanimous vote.
Counselor, now I need to close the public hearing, right? Okay. No. Okay. Well, I'm completely confused, but thank you. Okay, folks, thanks. We'll We'll see you all again on July 11th. Let me just adjourn the meeting and we'll be finished. We are now at adjournment, the adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency held this 13th day of June 2017 is adjourned till Thursday, June 27, 2017 at 3 o'clock p.m. We'll see you then. Thank you.